welcome to another exciting episode of The Energy or actually, Riding Through the Unknown. I am a little bit flustered right now and a little out of sorts as time has gotten away from me. So I am excited to bring you another episode, and unfortunately, with our guest being in the UK, we apparently had some confusion of the time and date, and so I messaged them and hoping they will be on, and if they do show up, we will have the episode. If not, you'll just have to put up with me for a little while. And hello, Amber Rose. Hope you're having a great Friday. And while we wait to see if our guest is going to make it, I will share with you all part of my adventure with this show and take a moment to share with you what this show really means to me and how grateful I am to all of you. It's something that I talk a lot about, but I don't really fully talk about. And so today, I think I am going to open up some more about it. So, as many of you know, and some of you who are new may not know, I started this show in August last year of 2023 with the thought of having 10 episodes and trying my thumb at doing a disclosure type program and bringing about some of the esoteric topics. And also was a show that I was creating to be another show that's a passion of mine, to where I could share with you all some of the topics that I look into that I consider maybe on the fringe side of the paranormal, so I don't put it on my paranormal show. And the fire that lit me to create this was the fact that my father passed away a few months before launching this show, and so I literally took a moment and said, I'm going to do this for my dad because he had this passion as well as I did, and my mom as well, and supported me. And I feel like I always wanted this to happen, but I always questioned whether or not I had the chops and the ability to do this type of series. And so I launched with my first guest, and at that time I was a nervous wreck because not only was it my first show of that series and an attempt at this, but I only had 3 out of the 10 guests, and I had no idea who to reach out to for help and who to open up to and say, hey, who would be good for this? And so I was fortunate to have my first 3 guests lined up, which, if you all remember, was Brad Olson, who I met at GSIC, Arkeem Ra, and I had Tony Rodriguez, who I had seen at GSIC at the time. And so I was really excited to have them as guests, and my friend Alex Collier wanted to be a guest, and so he ended up being my 4th guest. And out of the beauty of how the universe works and everything, I ended up with a show that had 10 episodes filled before I even really had a chance to sit down and look at what's going on, because guests suggested people, and I found a source where I could get a lot of people from. So I was blessed and trusting in myself, and thus this show unfolded and actually ended up with 11 episodes in the first season. And so, hello, UFO Joe. Thank you for watching. And I had no idea how popular, in my opinion, this series was going to be. And come the end of the season of 1, where I did 2 episodes a month, and on occasion I did 3 if I had a special episode where Angie Dollar did a reading for me on my involvement in the secret space program. And so, because that was such a topic of interest, I decided we should do it live and share with you my journey of discovery as well, because that seems to be where the show was going. And so, come December, I thought about it long and hard, and I wanted to bring more episodes because I had so many people requesting to be on the series, and I was feeling so blessed and everything that I took and decided season 2 would be 3 shows a month. And I contacted my cousin, Tyler Estes, and I messaged him about starting season 2 and wanting a new look for the show. And he said, I have a great idea for an intro. Can I try it and show you? And I said, yes. And thus, the intro, after 4 renditions of it, came to be the intro that you all just saw, and is such an amazing intro that I cannot begin to say to my cousin how much gratitude I have to him for creating this intro. And the music and the movies within movies is what I call them, and all the topic images he came up with just blew me away, and I cannot help but just be so enthralled by it and enjoy watching it. Even when I don't have a show, I will put it on. It is just that amazing of an intro. And Amba, Rose, and UFO Joe, if you guys have any questions for me, feel free to ask. I am totally here to answer questions as well. And anyone else that's watching, feel free to ask me anything about my journey in the discovering of my involvement in the secret space program, or my interest in topics such as Tartaria or the Giants, the Anunnaki. This is an opportunity for you all to be able to ask me anything. And so, thank you, UFO Joe. I appreciate that. And I try to bring new experiences as much as I can. And so, I am kind of curious too to see if and what topics you all are interested in, and seeing if there's some that I may have missed and maybe bring in for season 3. If you have any topics, drop them in the as a comment, and I will look into it. And so I was blessed this season to be able to connect with guests such as Julia Kaman and learn about water, the effects of water, and how best to drink water. And that was not a thing I really thought about. I knew plastic had its issues, but I didn't think about the copper or metal. And so that was interesting to learn, and how it powers buildings of the ancient world. And we also got to delve into Tartaria. So that was exciting to me to have her share her knowledge with us. And I was blessed to have Penny Bradley back on the show. And let's see. Previous advanced civilizations on Earth before ours is pretty interesting topic. I do agree with you, UF Joe, that there are topics such as Lemuria or Mu. There's Atlantis. There's the Anunnakis, Sumerians, and the cultures that came before, such as the Avians, the blue ones. Their names are escaping me right now. The Lyrans, the Syrians. There are a lot of cultures that came before us, and so I do like that topic. So I'm actually going to write that one down and see if I can't find guests, or may just do a show with what I've discovered and share my information. And there are a lot of advanced civilizations that we have been hidden from us, so that is a really cool topic. And I could probably get a few episodes out of that. So thank you for that, UFO Joe. And I also do enjoy having guests on. Like I was saying, Penny Bradley got to be a repeat guest. Tonight's guest, or this afternoon, depending on where you are in the world, was a repeat guest. She was on earlier this year, actually. It was the first time I've tried to get a guest twice in the same year. There was Alex Collier, got to come on the show for a second time. He was the 4th guest of my first season. Brad Olson also got to come on and do an episode both seasons. He was my first guest and really helped me with the confidence to continue the series. So I thank Brad a lot for that. And I also want to take a moment and thank all the networks that allow me to air this series on their networks. And I'm going to give a shout out to those networks here for a moment, starting with Paralinks, the Paranormal United Network. That's where I got my start, so I am grateful to them for my start. Then there is eTalk.tv with Jeff Rennell, who's been a guest on my series, sharing his information and his passions. And in fact, I think I'm due to have him on again. I need to reach out to him as being a guest and see if he can come on. And he and his network do the Halloween marathon event with 2-hour episodes back to back of shows on the network, and we all get to choose our topics. And so I am grateful to Jeff Rennell and eTalk.tv, and I am grateful to legitpodcast.com as they took a chance and are having me air this series and my other shows as well on their network, being The Energy That Surrounds Us on Tuesdays. So I am grateful for that. And UF Expo is my newest network that I get to air the episodes to. So I am grateful to all of them. And I am so excited that this show can be watched on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble. We have our own Rumble channel. We have our own eTalk.tv channel. We have Acast, Pocket Cast, iHeartRadio Podcast, Spotify, where you can hear and watch the episodes. So I'm grateful for that. And Amber Rose is asking, how have I came about learning about the SSP? That is a really great question, and it actually came about with seeing Michael Salla with his books about the secret space program of the Navy, and I believe he also does one with the Air Force, and he has his show that he does and has guests on there such as JP who share their experiences with the secret space program, SSP. And so I think Michael Salla really is where I got my start of knowing about the SSP. And then I would hear people like Elena Denon talking about it and other speakers talking about it. Alex Collier talks about it some. Tony Rodriguez sharing his story. And actually, when I went to the first GSIC conference and I heard Tony Rodriguez share his story, there were a lot of things that triggered in my mind and made me feel like there was something to this and something I needed to look at. And so I would talk to Alex about it and other friends, and I started to realize that I have a strong connection to the SSP, and I had guests like Arkeem Ra and others who were sharing their knowledge and what they could read off of me around the secret space program, such as Angie Dollar and Christy Campbell, Eve Howard, Danny Flitz, and so many, even including my latest guest, Nova Bell, who helped me to understand more of what is done and how it's all connected, and had a reading with Steven, who helped me out, and Sean Bond has helped me with protecting myself while doing the research into the SSP so that I can keep myself and my loved ones protected, and that'd be my friends and family. And I also have to say that I do have a book in the works that I'm working on, it is taking a bit of time with the editing of it, and I am slowly but surely pushing myself that I'm hoping that I will be publishing it soon, but I cannot promise that because life happens and all kinds of things are going on, and I got the shows and everything, and getting out and doing investigations again. So I have a lot of, like we used to call them, a lot of, what was the term? A lot of spokes in the wheel, I think was one term, or a lot of cords out there, a lot of feelers out there. So being pulled in a lot of directions. So I am doing my best to balance everything, and I do have to apologize for starting late today. I had lost track of time, so that was my fault as well. And Amber Rose is saying Lumeria. That is a really great topic, and my feelings is Lumeria is but in the Pacific Ocean, where Atlantis was in the Atlantic Ocean, and both of those were powerhouse civilizations where Mu, I believe, or Lemuria was more on the nature side and protectorate of nature, where Atlantis was more technology. And I have to admit, I have memories of being in Atlantis as a captain of a ship where I got to escort on occasion the seven sisters or the seven priestesses of Atlantis, the ruling caste. And I also got to see where they started to play God and started to create hybrids, which was not what was intended. And so there were repercussions. And I feel like that's partly what led to the sorry, that led to the devastation of Atlantis. And I do feel connected to Lemuria. I have come across a few Lemurian seed crystals and can feel energy off of them, and sometimes I feel like I get downloads from those. I have looked twice into a crystal skull, and when I say crystal skull, I'm talking about a actual crystal skull that has no chisel marks. It is perfect. You don't touch it, you just look at it, and it just takes you where it's going to take you. And so Amber Rose is asking, do I have any connections to these past civilizations? I feel like I do, and part of having knowledge of past lives where we've lived timelines before and we have soul memory of that, I believe, and it bleeds into our everyday life and allows us to have understanding of areas that we've never been to, and to me is why we have the phenomenon known as deja vu. But I also feel like having these memories also helps us understand where we're coming from. And so I've had many dream visions of being warrior on battlefields and leader of men and follower of men. And I can honestly say, and I don't ever really admit this much, but I will admit this today on this show with you all, that I was working with a lady who wanted to know if I wanted to open the door to my past lives when I was a teenager. And so, being the quote unquote cocky teenager who thought I knew everything about everything growing up in metaphysics and not being held down by dogma, I told her, yes, I want the door opened to my past lives and I want to be able to recall. And so for several months, all of my dreams, all of my daydreams were pure red. And I slowly started to realize that, excuse me, slowly started to realize that by unlocking these past lives, it meant not just the memory of saying, like, I was a Roman soldier. No, I got the memory of what battles was I in? How many soldiers on the opposing side was I accountable for taking out? And was I a merciful soldier or was I a bloodthirsty soldier? Was I a barbarian? Was I, you know, controlled? What type of soldier was I? And what the impacts that had on everything. And so that was turned out to be a gift because as I got older, I didn't have the draw to join the military and fight in a war that I felt wasn't our war. And so, don't get me wrong, I am a huge supporter of the veterans, and those who serve. I thank them every day that I can for serving and protecting our nation. But that is a special calling that I feel is reserved for those who have that calling and isn't something that should be forced upon. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of anti draft, because some people are not into that lifestyle, don't have the mentality for it. They're better served being maybe behind a desk reading a map, determining strategies, or helping on the home front to keep everything going here so the country doesn't fall apart while fighting abroad. So everybody has their own unique set of skills and parts, and so that is something that I honor and cherish. And so I'm going to take and let's see. Amber Rose is asking, have you always been into paranormal? What brought you to that? That is a very actually great question, Amber Rose. So paranormal was something that I didn't really get into until about 6 years ago when I started doing paranormal investigations. And I've done over 100 investigations. And I have been to, I believe it is 8 states now where I have investigated in the US. I've had paranormal experiences in France, and I've had paranormal experience in Spain and in Italy. And one thing I will share with you, Amber Rose, is growing up metaphysical, seeing, how can I put this? Seeing the past lives and seeing all of the different ways of looking at things and the different perspectives and the learning lessons, that I grew up with beings that looked like shadows and were always around but always out of sight. And so I just viewed them as beings that were out there. I didn't realize I was growing up with paranormal events and paranormal aspects all around me. I just thought they were spiritual experiences. So I've had to learn that the metaphysics and the paranormal are very close and very entwined. And so my very first experience of learning in depth the paranormal and why I view it as such a passion of mine and such an amazing thing happened to me when I was 2 years old. And I've shared this on several interviews and on other shows. I'm not sure if I've shared it on this show, so if you all would like, I will give you all the abridged version. And so I will say that when I was 2 years old, I was living up north in a house that had 2 stories and a basement. Excuse me. It was winter time, and so I was dressed, if you can imagine, at two, how parents in the late 70s, early 80s. They're not wanting me to tell this story, but I'm going to push through for y'all. Ugh. But I was dressed, as you can imagine, for the cold and those real poofy outfits and everything. And so I'm on the second story with my parents and workers. And I'm imagining there were workers there because I don't know why else we would all be up there, and had plywood over a vent. But somehow something had moved the plywood off of the vent that my mother had put. And when I went to look at the vent, it grabbed my arms and accidentally pulled me into the vent. So I am free falling in a vent at 2 years old from the second story past the first story and land in the basement, which is a concrete bottom. And I get up, no broken bones, no bruises. I just get up and walk and think nothing of it. Pardon me. Well, as I'm getting up and walking away, I am like, wow, my eyebrow hurt, and I had cut my eyebrow on a wire, and that eyebrow to this day still does not grow any hair in that spot. So it's like a memory implant for myself so that I always remember this story and what happened. And as a teenager, I learned about a being who helped me down and placed me on the ground, and we had this conversation. And so this is the part where I get pulled out of time, because as I'm falling, you can imagine free falling down a vent shaft, that those are slick metal. They're not designed to have any traction, so it is a straight shot. Well, I have memory of this conversation with this being talking about how it's not my time yet, although if I wanted to go, I could, and that I have, if I stay, I have choices of what I can do, how I can do it, and I laid and I'm sitting there talking with this being, and I'm stating if I'm going to stay, which I chose to stay, that I wanted to help people. So I determined how I was going to get gifts to help people, and how I was going to have these gifts unfold, when they were going to unfold in my life, so that everything would be predetermined and I could do what I needed to do. And so conversation ended. I'm put back in. They put me on the ground. And so I'm like, okay, this is really cool. I was like, I can't believe I got to have a conversation with a being. It could have been an angel, could have been a star being, could have been an alien being. I'm not exactly sure. I know it had bluish light, I believe. And it was very tall. And so I know of being a star seed myself, being hybrid star seed, so could have been one of my family members coming to help me, or someone who recognized my potential and wanted to help. But I then talked with a friend, Catherine, in Greece, and she tells me of a second spirit. The one that accidentally pulled me in was not the one who I talked to, that another being had come in, taken me from them, and we had this conversation, and that was the one who I remember. And so I was surprised to learn in my late 30s, early 40s, that there was a second being in this paranormal experience. And I had told this story a few times, and one of my guests who was interviewing me in return had mentioned it's really cool. To her, the cool thing was that I was able to understand these beings. And I had not thought about that. That, yeah, at 2 years old, as amazing as it is having this level of a conversation that I had, that I could actually understand this being. And so that was a gift in itself as well. And that is the paranormal experience that got me started with the unfolding of my paranormal journey, and learning that I have been around the paranormal all my life and protected by paranormal. And so I don't tempt fate. I'm not one of those that goes in and antagonizes spirits to get activity. I feel like if they're going to communicate, they're going to communicate. I don't need to antagonize them. I don't open any portals to bring anything in. And if I find any portals that were left open and the spirits ask me to close them, I do, so that nothing else can come in. I do have that gift. And I did hospice work for a couple of years, I think. And one of the gifts that I was given is I was doing this work after I got my reverend's license through a 2.5 year study. And I would sit there and talk with my patients that I was visiting and listen to their stories, listen to them. And as they were sharing their stories and everything, I would always ask them, if you want to go, what's keeping you here? And so many times I would hear, I'm afraid to go because I don't think I'm worthy to go. I don't think that I lived the right life and that I'm going to be judged and I'm going to be kept out because I'm not this or that. And that would just tear my heart up because that is dogma that doesn't exist and doesn't need to be exist. There is no fear of going to the other side. There shouldn't be. And having 3 near-death experiences that I can recall, this is my experience of, you don't need to be afraid when it comes to your time, and that there's a peace there, and nobody judges you. You judge yourself, if you could even call it a judgment. You look at everything you've done. You look at how many people you helped. You looked at how your actions helped or hurt someone. And you just share your learning of these lessons. And you then decide if you're going to reincarnate again or move on and start a life somewhere else and go on your path that way. And so I would advise my patients when I would be visiting them that whenever they would say, I'm not worthy, I have too much sin on me to go to heaven, that I would go, well, I have a reverend's license. Do you think that if I help you release this fear and the guilt of the sins, that you would, feel better about it? And they'd be like, well, you can't do that. I'd be like, well, as a reverend, I can, because I'm only offering, in my mind, I'm offering them a new perspective, a new look of themselves, a new understanding of themselves. And so they would all end up peacefully passing a week or two or shorter. And they started to nickname me the Angel of Death comically, because I could help patients who were struggling, feeling miserable, to pass on peacefully. And so that was, to me, a great gift with hospice and learning that and learning how to help souls. And help them to come at peace with passing over and meeting their family and loved ones and turning it into a great experience. And so, hi, Selena Ingles. Hope you're doing well. Hope everybody is enjoying this. It's not one of my normal shows, but you know, that's the beauty of doing live shows is they're not always what you anticipate them being, but they're always what you need them to be. So, yeah, and I will say with the secret space program, the one aspect that I struggle with is discerning what is program memory versus past life memory. And so Selena is saying she signed up to do hospice volunteer work recently, but have not got to do it yet. Well, that is really cool, and I'm glad you're doing that. It takes people with a really big heart to do hospice volunteering work and patience to sit with these patients who don't necessarily always have family around and, aren't always in the greatest of space. So thank you for doing that, Selena, and thank you to all the other hospice volunteers that are out there. And hey, Woo Riders DG, Derek, hope you're doing well. And let's see. Yes. Well, actually, Selena, it's not only for elderly people who don't have family. There are times where I have seen people in their 20s and 30s being in hospice care because of an accident or something that happened with them, a trauma. So, yeah, it's not always just the elderly. So be prepared for that. And, thank you, Selena. I appreciate that. And the one I signed up for is, well, enjoy the stories. And don't worry if they repeat the stories because that is a wonderful gift for them to be able to share those stories and to have someone listen. And I always viewed it as fun to hear the stories that they would share. And I have had hospice experiences of being in the hospice center where they're in a room isolated from everyone in their beds, and so you just get to talk to them there. And I have done hospice where it's at someone's home, and so that was a different experience, but all in all, it is a great comfort to these people, even as unconventional in their mind because they're in pain, so they don't know how to express and get the help, so they may scream or they may make noises or may just lay there and never say a word. But the fact that you're there sitting with them or standing by their side or even in the same room or the same building, they can feel that, I believe, and they know it. And so that is a great gift. And I'm sure you're going to get some really great stories, Selena. And so, oh, you're going to draw them their favorite memory. That is a really cool idea. I never thought about that. That is awesome. I'm sure that'll really make their day and brighten their day and give them something to look forward to and enjoy. And so, yeah, hospice work was something I never thought I would do, but I was so grateful that I did. Paranormal field, that's another thing I never thought I would do, and I'm so grateful that I've gotten involved in it. And Selena says I'm using some of the volunteer hours to get my license for psychology. Oh, that'll be great, because I'll admit I feel like a lot of people in the field don't take the time to listen to the patients and really understand what's going on. So I thank you, Selena, and that's inspiring that you're doing that. And so I think, my personal opinion, that'll make you a better psychologist than some of the others. And so I'm glad you agree. And oh, thank you, Selena. You're awesome too. Everybody that watches this show is awesome. And being part of the secret space program was never anything that I saw coming, even though I had inclinations as a kid. Like, one example is when in elementary school or free time, you would draw pictures. Like, people would draw pictures of meadows, flowers, trees, the outside. I was known for drawing pictures of a military base inside a mountain that had no doors, but there was aircraft and vehicles in there. And so I never understood how and why I was drawing those until I met Arkeem Ra on my series. And he helped me to understand that those really do exist and that there were portals. That's why there was no doors. So I was blessed with, getting clarity. And that's one of the things that I love about doing podcasting. And that is a story of. Ooh, hold on. I got to sneeze. Hold on. Let me get this out. Okay. Sorry about that. But so I was approached a few months after I started paranormal investigating with a team by a network, and I love that, Selena. Spirit talking. That is beautiful. I love that. I might have to start using that. That is a great way to think about it. But yeah, this founder of a network approaches me and says, "You should totally do a podcast show. People will love you," he said. And I felt like I was so green and only having a few months underneath me. I was like, I didn't know anybody. Nobody'd want to come on my show. So I talked myself out of it in like 5 minutes flat and was like, no, told them I'm going to pass. And universe knew better, as always. And a couple years later, I'm at a Para-Unity event, and he is there. And I get to talk to him some more, and we were talking, and unbeknownst to me, I had like 5 seconds of camera time with one of the network administrators, and I had enough time to say hello and ask how everybody's doing, and then I got called out to do something, and when I came back, they were putting everything away, and so I jokingly said to him, "Oh, I missed my 15 seconds of fame," And he said, "Oh no, we have bigger ideas for you and bigger plans for you." And he asked me again about doing a show, and I felt in a much different space. And so I told him I would gladly do a show and would most likely have a co-host and with a friend, and yeah, we'll try to put something together. And we were kind of dragging our feet because we didn't know what was expected and trying to create a polished show from the beginning. And this was back when Facebook became Meta, and so the network head reaches out to me and says, "We need to put you on next week, or we may not be able to put you on at all because Meta is coming and it's going to make everything harder." And so I reached out to my co host at the time and told her what was going on and what advice they gave me. And we actually launched a show in a week and started doing it weekly and had our friends on and had a few guests from other places. And actually, my friend Catherine in Greece was a guest on this series. And in December, we were talking amongst ourselves, my co host and I, and we're like, we need to polish up this show. You know, it's time to make some changes. And lo and behold, the energy that surrounds us was born. And that was a gift and has turned out to be a wonderful experience. And that show is the umbrella show that this show series runs under. And so that is how I got into podcasting. And it is interesting how my life is full of a lot of experiences that I never saw coming, but I'm so grateful that I had. And so, yeah, the history, the timeline would be is having a childhood where everything was going well, I thought, and then teenage years, my whole world gets turned upside down, and out of that, I found my gifts and I found my calling and my purpose. And so there was a lot of good that came out of that, and a lot of mental ideas that I got and programs I got to get rid of for ones that better served me, and opened myself up to learning things, and got me into the paranormal and got me into the esoterics and looking at the secret space program, star races, ancient civilizations, looking at what is going on around us that we have no idea about, but we should. What structures really are about that are all over these sacred places. And so, yeah, it's amazing how the universe unfolds everything for you. And I am so grateful to every one of my guests on this series that has helped me unfold my journey into the secret space programs and understanding. And I have one partial memory that I will share with you all that I haven't been able to fully develop, but it's where I was in water and I put my head underwater, which I normally don't do. And it's not because I'm afraid of drowning, it's for other reasons. And I could hear myself being in a place that wasn't where I was. It's like the second I went underwater, I was teleported somewhere else and experiencing something else. And I'm in this water, and instinctively, when you wake up somewhere and you're in water, you want to get out because you don't know where you're at. And I took my arm out of the water and it started to burn. So I put it back in the water and it healed itself. And I saw this suit being put on me. And when the suit finished, I was able to get out of the water. And it was a black suit with no gloves, no helmet, but I was breathing fine. There was low, kind of greenish light around, and I see these pipes with water rushing through. So I feel like, okay, so I must be in a building somewhere, possibly underground, that there's water being brought in and out through tubes in the walls and being visible. And there's no artwork, there's no like design element or anything. It's like Spartan as could be. And I realize I'm the only one there. And so I start looking around to see if I can figure out where I'm at, what's going on. And something pulls me out of the water. And I think because I was confused where I was, I pulled my head above water and broke the connection, but then was able to reconnect when I put my head back under the water. And I seen myself going into this room, and I'm about to cross the doorway threshold when I notice there's chairs and tables lined up almost like a classroom or like a meeting room or a conference room if you're giving instructions to a group of people. And I don't know who's in there, but just as I'm about to step foot in there, the door closes on me, like literally slammed in my face, like I'm not supposed to be there. And I turn around and I don't see anything, but I hear this word. It doesn't even sound like a voice. I can't really describe it, but it says Montauk. And as soon as that happens, I am back above water. And I tried 2 or 3 times to go back underwater to see if I could reconnect to get more and wasn't able to. So that is my partial memory of being a part of or being at Montauk. So I'm not quite sure what all that means. I'm still working on piecing together things and learning what programs I'm a part of, what projects I did. I know I did time travel because I can feel like I did. I can feel it resonate within me. And so keep watching this series because, as many of you know, as parts unfold, I shared on this series. So this series is partly my journey as well. And I recently did a reading session with Steven, and I was able to obtain Andromedan aspects of myself. So I do feel I'm adjusting to that, and that may be why I'm getting hoarse and got a cough and nose is feeling a little off, is adjusting all the new aspects and new parts and adjusting to the new frequencies. And Selena is saying, I think I have two, but I'm not sure. Are you talking about being in the programs, or are you talking about Montauk, Selena? I'm just curious. But I do have to say, the one thing I will mention about being in the programs is it's really more difficult being in the programs and trying to share memories and talk to people about it because so few people know about it. And there's a lot of people in the field who feel like if you don't have this information, we can't validate it. And there are people around, like friends and everything, who all want proof. And that's the one thing I can guarantee you when you're in black projects or underground projects, that proof is not something you're ever probably going to find. And so you just have to stay strong with your memories, stay strong with what resonates with yourself, and don't challenge people. Don't look to other people to validate yourself. And I would suggest that, trust yourself and surround yourself with people you trust who will be honest with you and will help you with keeping yourself grounded. And Selena answered. She says, well, I was talking about time travel, but that too. I have memories that I think were dreams, but it's hard to say. That is the trick. And time travel is a very interesting phenomenon because, yeah, I'm still trying to figure it out too, Selena, so don't feel alone in that. I think we all are. But time runs in loops. It's not linear as we've always been told and what we think. There is no point A to point B. It's by being in a loop, it's more like the past, present, and future are literally all happening at the same time. And that's why the past is so hard for us to look at because it's so fresh all the time, and it does after a while get easier to talk about because the more you talk about it and the more you're in that moment, you're diffusing the power that it has over you. And why the future, you may have visions of what's to come, and sometimes they happen and sometimes they don't because the future is not written. And so you may take a right one day when you should have taken a left, and that altered that future timeline. And so there is no way to really concrete in the future. And so, yeah, Selena's right. Time is stacked. It is like a Jenga game, and it's very complicated, and it's very, very stressful because you're trying to maintain one future out of the possibilities. And so that's why there's the metaphysical adage of what you wanted isn't always what you're going to get, but what you needed is what you're always going to get. And that is the universe's way of saying, you may have wanted this, but we know what you really needed. And so we're going to give you what you need in this moment for you to move on. And so, yeah, it's all at once. I agree, Selena. And so I'm going to take a moment and share with you all what I have coming up next week with shows. And I appreciate your all's patience and listening. And I am so grateful to Amber Rose and Derek and Selena for popping into the chat room and asking questions and sharing experiences with me. So thank you so much for that. And let me grab my schedule so I don't misquote myself. But I have an investigation tomorrow night at the Hood County Jail where I've been before, but I'm going with the new team tomorrow night, so it'll be fun to investigate with them. I've investigated a few places along the way, so grateful for that. And on Monday, if schedule allows, I have Dr. Luis Turi coming on the energy that surrounds us. So I'm hoping that one will hold because I think that he has a lot to offer, and I think that'll be a great episode with a lot of great information coming. And Tuesday night, I have a name that many of you may know, and those of you who don't, I believe you'll want to tune in. I have Barbara Lamb coming on the show, and a little teaser, she has recently written a book, and she and the co-author Sheila will be guests to share their book together in December. So this Tuesday will be Barbara on her own sharing her experiences and delving into her part of the book. And Wednesday, I have Writing Through the Unknown, this series coming back, and hopefully my guests will come through. I haven't been able to tie him down. If not, I have a different type of episode that I'm hoping you all will enjoy. So stay tuned for that. And Friday on this series, I have Leslie and Stephen Shaw coming on. And their episode will actually be 6 o'clock because they're on Pacific time. And so it'll be 6 Eastern, or not 6 Eastern, I'm sorry, 6 Central. And I will be a guest on their show coming up shortly, as well as soon as we can pin down a date. And so that is next week's schedule. And I do have some more exciting guests coming. And so thank you all for watching this episode and helping me to do this episode, being the only one on the screen. So I hope I didn't mumble or repeat or babble too much. I appreciate you all, and to all of you out there, make it a wonderful day, wonderful evening, wonderful afternoon, and thank you, Selena. I appreciate that so much. I'm going to say before I play the outro, I always ask my guests about a blue nugget, and so it seems fair that since I'm the guest, that I turn around and say, "Hey, Michael, what nugget, a golden nugget, would you like to leave the audience with today?" So, my nugget that I'm wanting to leave with you all today is, whew, this is going to be a tough one. Let's see, how can I word this one? So, my golden nugget for you all is trust in yourself and trust in the unfolding. What that looks like is, as you're going through experiences in life, whether it's personal, work, relationships, trust in yourself and trust that the way it unfolds is the way it's meant to unfold. Don't try and control the outcome. Don't become attached to any outcomes. Keep yourself free and keep yourself open, because the universe, as I said earlier, knows better what we need and what we want than we do, because they see a much bigger picture. So take each day, fill it with love and joy, and just trust in the unfolding. Because as bleak or as positive or as amazing or dark everything may seem, there is a reason, and you'll be much stronger, much wiser, much better version of yourself on the other side of whatever is going on. So trust in the unfoldment, because they know what you can handle and what you signed up for. And so they won't overwhelm you and put you in a situation that you can't get out of, in my opinion. And let me stress, that's just my opinion. So, yeah, just trust in the unfolding. And with that being said, make it a great one. And I will see you all next week. Have a great one, everyone. Bye bye.